Well, welcome. In this video, we're going to look at how to factor a polynomial using a method called dividing by c. This is actually a quick and easy method that will work, and it's actually, like I said, it's probably one of my favorite methods to use when factoring a polynomial. So if you're following along, why don't you write down this example, 4x squared minus 9x minus 9. Now this is going to start out looking like some other methods, like if you're familiar with the grouping method, where we're going to start by multiplying together the first and last term. And again, I like to do my work kind of off to the side here, but for this method, it really doesn't matter. But 4x squared times negative 9 would be negative 36x squared. And then we're also going to write down that middle term, negative 9x. And so our goal right now is to figure out what two terms multiply together to be negative 36x squared minus 9x. So again, if you're familiar with the grouping method, this is going to start very similar to that method, because I would recommend listing out all of those different factors if you have a hard time thinking of what two numbers to use. So these are all the factors of 36. And then if we're trying to find two numbers that multiply together to be a negative 36, one of them has to be negative. And if they add together to be a negative number, that means the bigger number has to be negative. And so since we're working with all x's here, we also want to have an x for each term. And so this is how we would set that up. So now when I look at this list, I'm trying to find out of these factors, which one of these factors add up now to be negative 9x. And that would be the 3x and negative 12x. So we could write that down. Now we are not going to break this up into four terms. So the next step is really simple. We're basically just going to take each of those values we just found, and we're going to divide them by our c value. Now our c value is a negative 9, so we need to make sure that we use a negative there. So we're going to divide by negative 9. And we're going to reduce both of these fractions. So that first fraction reduces to be x over negative 3. If we do reduce the other fraction, now that's a negative 12x divided by negative 9x. And so the negatives would cancel out, and I know that 3 that will go into both of those. So that factors down to be positive 4x over 3. Now the one thing that I will say, anytime we have a negative either in the numerator or the denominator, keep the negative in the denominator. So let's say, for example, I divided by a positive 9 here. And so I had a negative 12x over a positive 9. So I'd have a negative 4x over a positive 3. We would take that negative and push it down to the denominator. The reason being, we want to keep our x values positive. Why? Well, because what we just found is a factored form. We're going to take that first fraction, x over negative 3, and that's going to be one of our factors. That second fraction, 4x over 3, we're going to make that our other factor by writing it as 4x plus 3. And literally, that is how easy it is. So all we did in this method is once we got the 3x and negative 12x, we divided both those terms by our c value, negative 9, and reduced them, and you get your factored form. So the one thing to remember with this method is, like I said earlier, if there's a negative left in the reduced fraction, make sure to put that negative in the denominator so the x stays positive when we write it in factored form. And that's how we use this other method of factoring using this dividing by c method.